Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sonoma Speed Tour with the Trans Am Series presented by Pirelli Western Championship. Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series, all classes, race 2 at Sonoma, the Sunday race. This is the fourth round of the 2024 season. Starting first is Dylan Lupton, then second Michelle Nagai, Gio Ruggiero is third, Tim Barber fourth, Michelle Abadi fifth, Brad McAllister sixth, Michael LaPaglia 7th, Kyle Kelly 8th, Troy Ermish 9th, Ken Sutherland 10th, Tim Lind 11th, Bob Accardo Jr. 12th, Jim Guthrie 13th, Victor Chopla with Coolbox is 14th, JC Monet 15th, Tim Carroll 16th, 17th is David Hampton, 18th is Kevin Michaels, Matthew Rivkin with Coolbox is 19th, Patrick Utt is 20th, 21st is Steve Goldman, John Schweitzer is 22nd, Tim Rankin is 23rd, Chris Evans starting 24th, Will Rogers starting 25th, look for him to move up, Rick Wright is 26th, and Lonnie Hostetler 27th. We have a newcomer joining us at 28th, that is John Cowboy Moore, so welcome to John Moore starting 28th. And for some reason again, that's Troy Ermish starting from the back. But here we go to the green, and look at that, we've got a green flag. You can see there, that's Dylan Lupton, Michelle Nagai leading the charge through, but it looks like Gio Ruggiero has the inside of Michelle Nagai, so that's Dylan Lupton up front, Gio Ruggiero, then Tim Barber, then Michelle Nagai, Brad McAllister, Michelle Abadi, Michael LaPaglia. We have a great race coming through Cube 3, Turn 2, and there we go, up the Bennett Bridge Hall, Turn 3. It looks like Lupton is up front, now on board with Michael LaPaglia. On board with our leader, Dylan Lupton, with Lupton excavating forward. It looks like his camera just went out, so we just lost our leader's in-car camera. Sorry about that, but that's the 79 of Dylan Lupton, followed by Gio Ruggiero, who will be racing next weekend in ARCA at Dover. Now we're on board with Jim Guthrie, Guthrie's Garage Ford Mustang, a beautiful Ford Mustang. Going up into Sonoma Turn 7. So far, this is shaping out to be a better first lap than yesterday's race here at Sonoma. This is the Sunday race. We raced yesterday, Saturday, here at the Sonoma Speed Tour as Michelle Nagai in her XGT car follows down. Then there's Brad McAllister ahead of Michael LaPaglia. It looks like we have a little bit of oil there on our camera at Mission Foods Turn 10, but here's the field coming through a very fast Mission Foods Turn 10. Will Rogers already picked up a lot of places, as did Troy Ermish. So Dylan Lupton really gapping Gio Ruggiero. Dylan Lupton's in an XGT car. That's Gio Ruggiero in a Cube 3 Architecture TA2 car. Brad McAllister getting a little bit sideways there at the bottom, and Michael LaPaglia ready to pounce, but look out. There's Kyle Kelly right behind. We got to take a listen to this. I think this car sounds tremendous. I'm going to lay out. That's Kyle Kelly following Michael LaPaglia as they come into Turn 7. With a car just in front of Kyle Kelly, Michael LaPaglia. Got Brad McAllister just in front of him as they go around Mission Foods Turn 10. That's Kyle Kelly right behind, but then looks like Ken Sutherland and Tim Lind are right there, right behind them as well. Michelle Nagai, This seems to be the race to watch, though. So there's the leader in the Cube 3 TA2 series, then Tim Barber, Michelle Nagai, second in XGT, then Brad McAllister, Michael LaPaglia, Kyle Kelly on board with Kyle Kelly. Around turn 4, very difficult to navigate, and Michael LaPaglia seems to have the faster car than Brad McAllister, but that really doesn't matter here at Sonoma. It's where you can make that pass happen, and this is a tough circuit to pass. You can see Brad McAllister going a little bit wide there, offering a little bit of the inside, but not enough for LaPaglia to pounce on it. Who's kind enough to also give us the rear view. We appreciate that from his Papini's Garage crew. Now, like I said in yesterday's race, this was a new surface as about 5 or 6 weeks ago. And our Pirelli P0s are getting almost a little bit too much grip on this just super smooth, like pool table-like atmosphere here at the new Sonoma Raceway at the Sonoma Speed Tour. So that was first, there's second, then there's third overall, fourth overall. We're on board now with second in XGT currently, but fourth overall, Michelle Nagai, following Tim Barber, just like yesterday's race. Tim Barber seems to have a little bit looser setup than he did yesterday, and he is hanging that rear end out. Not sure if they made some changes to the car or if that's just the conditions of today. They did have an early morning practice that we saw some video from early on in this broadcast. That was the early morning just practice to shake things out, or if anybody got things wrong yesterday, they could go out and test it. That's the strength and the weakness of these double headers. But Michelle Nagai right there, right behind Tim Barber, kind of showing her speed earlier than she did in yesterday's race. She did mention that she was kind of willing to stay behind Tim Barber and learn some things, but it looks like she's learned what she can, and now she wants to get by him. As they come around Mission Foods turn 10. With the oil on the lens, apologize for that, but still want to offer that perspective as we're on board with Michael LaPaglia, who's just behind Brad McAllister, but Kyle Kelly's right in the rear. So is Ken Sutherland and Tim Lynn. So this is already kind of shaping up to be a great race of our longtime TA2 competitors. I believe Michael LaPaglia was runner-up in last year's championship behind his good friend Brody Goebel, who I texted yesterday. So we congratulate Brody. He started his family, had a baby, but he's talking to Michael after each one of these races through text and trying to help him out and learn some things. But soon Brody's going to be joining us as a competitor. I wonder if that relationship will continue with LaPaglia and Brody as we follow on board now with Jim Guthrie with Will Rogers in his mirror, giving that corner to Will Rogers, who's in an XGT car. And Will has started from near the back and worked his way through now. Jim Guthrie currently in about 7th or 8th overall. Watch Jim's hands there, bottom left, trying to get around this carousel smoothly. I believe that's Chris Evans in another XGT car, just behind him to his left. Those Chris Evans XGT cars have a little bit more horsepower. Yes, they're wearing TA2 clothes, but they have a little bit more engine unrestricted. And then you can see on Michelle's car there, the white car, they have those canards up front to help out with the aero and the front end grip. On board with Michelle Nagai. Watch her hands down there in the bottom left. Watch her hands and eyes here coming around turn 11. Now that's Dylan Lupton, new to the series. Didn't have a great day yesterday, had some mechanical issues, but doing really well on that Lupton Excavation Ford Mustang. Then Gio Ruggiero, let's go through the field. Then Tim Barber. Then Michelle Nagai. Michelle Nagai currently second in XGT. Then here's this group, Brad McAllister, Michael LaPaglia, and Kyle Kelly. That seems to be the group to watch there. That's the last step on the podium that Brad McAllister has right now. And then you can see Will Rogers there right behind Ken Sutherland. So the car in front of Michael LaPaglia's red, white, and blue Mustang is Brad McAllister, currently in third in the Cube 3 TA2 series. Nick Middleton, the owner of Cube 3, was here with us all week and absolutely loves the Western Championship. It's his first time out here with the Western Championship. I was bragging on this championship and convinced him to come out, and now I think he's going to be back with us May 2nd through the 5th at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for the Mission Foods Laguna Seca Speed Tour. You can see Kyle Kelly just getting right behind Michael LaPaglia there, and Will Rogers behind Kyle Kelly trying to pounce, but this isn't a great place to pass, Will, so let's see what he can do in that orange Chris Evans Ford Mustang. And like I said, this is a mixed class of racing, and sometimes Kyle Kelly didn't go off too bad there, but sometimes the little interference from the different classes between two of these cars racing as they were there, that can really disrupt a race. But Will Rogers does a good job of getting between these two cars without really affecting anybody's time or race there. And Will Rogers, you can see that car can just take off like a rocket ship. He has about a 250 to 300 horsepower advantage and a little bit more of an aero advantage too, as now he's battling with Brad McAllister. So can Will Rogers make it up there to Dylan Lupton? And we could have an all-XGT battle. J.C. Monet there in the red Camaro right behind Jim Guthrie, and then Troy Ermish and Robert Accardo Jr. And then Tim Carroll and Victor Chopla there in our lone Mopar. Hoping to get more Mopars here. And then we've got the two AR Motorsports, David Hampton, Rick Wright. And then now we're on board with Kevin Michaels. Killer Shrimp Racing Chevrolet Corvette. Love having Kevin Michaels with us. I think the runner-up in last year's GT Championship behind J.C. Monet, who are also teammates, but J.C. Monet is now in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 series. So Kevin Michaels hoping to win the championship, but that red Porsche up there ahead of that Audi is the other GT car in this race. And David Hampton has had some good weekends here with us at Thunderhill and Sonoma. So we might have a great handling versus horsepower race here with us Sunday at Sonoma between this Corvette that we're on board with and that GT Porsche of David Hampton, who just let his teammate in an XGT Audi R8 give him a nice pass at turn 7. But this is the class right here, this GT class. They had a good race yesterday, but look for that to really heat up. As there goes Rick Wright, and then David Hampton, and then Kevin Michaels, followed by Patrick Utt in his TA2 car. Kevin Michaels taking a look on the inside here at turn 11. Who can outbrake? David Hampton goes a little bit late into there, and we see Ken Sutherland there on the left, but now Kevin Michaels takes it over David Hampton, and then there goes Ken Sutherland. So not sure what happened with Ken Sutherland. Oh, here's a replay. This is what happened. Oh, I believe he got nicked in the back there by Chris Evans in that XGT car. That's the replay starting back up, but man, kind of a naked place to be on track there at turn 11 as he restarts. And look at this, now we're seeing the replay. That's what happened. So it looks like the front left of Chris Evans' car might have pushed back when he hit Ken Sutherland and popped that Pirelli P0 tire. So hopefully Chris Evans in that beautiful XGT Ford Mustang can limp his way around. Not a great place because he basically popped his tire right after pit in. So now he has to do an entire lap. And now there's Ken Sutherland with Kahlberg Racing between the two GT cars. We ride on board with David Hampton and his AR Motorsports Porsche Cayman. Yesterday was David Hampton's birthday, so now that he has a whole year of experience on him just in one night, we're going to see what that gives him here with the experience that he gained the last year overnight. So happy birthday to David Hampton. Michael LaPaglia now kind of gapping Kyle Kelly. There's Kyle Kelly. You can see that kind of four-wheel drift around that. The cars get really light at the crest of that hill at the Cube 3 turn. and lose. Oh, but that's Brad McAllister. So Brad McAllister's lost 2 places now. And then we see Troy Ermish in that number 38 with Ermish Racing coming through as Jim Guthrie right beside J.C. Monet. We were talking about J.C. last year's GT winner in the championship, has moved to TA2, did really well. At Thunder Hill round 1, finished top 10 in Saturday's race. Hoping to do the same here today. And there is our leader in TA2, the Cube 3 TA2 series, Gio Ruggiero, and then Will Rogers. Will Rogers seems to like to win races from the back. We're going to see if he can continue that tradition today. Did it at Thunder Hill and now had to start near the back. So we're on board with Gio Ruggiero, not Ben Mayer, but Ben Mayer raced this car and did really well, was in the top 3 until the last lap. I think they ran out of gas. You can see Chris Evans there in the pits, but Ben Mayer, I got to brag on him, did really well last weekend at NOLA. Was in the top 3 all race, kept TA2 champion Thomas Merrill behind him, and then I think they had a mechanical or ran out of gas. But we see Will Rogers now around his teammate, Michelle Nagai. So Will Rogers currently in 2nd in XGT in that Chris Evans. Beautiful car. Tim Barber still in sight there of Gio. Now we're going to see the gap. So Tim Barber well ahead of Michael LaPaglia. We were talking about that. It was tough to pass Brad, but you can see now Brad is losing a little bit of speed there, as that should be Tim Lynn, the Lintimidator. So watch out for him to move up front. Tim Lynn doing really well in the points. Then Troy Ermish around Jim Guthrie, J.C. Monet, Bob Accardo Jr., and then Tim Carroll. Victor Chopla with Cool Box, so we appreciate them. Rick Wright, Ken Sutherland in that Camaro, and then here's the battle, still going strong with Killer Shrimp, Kevin Michaels, and David Hampton with AR Motorsports on board with David Hampton. Like I was saying, this is kind of a handling versus horsepower, so we're in the more nimble, lighter car. Some of the bodywork on this car is actually that new Porsche hemp fabric almost, like it's not carbon fiber, it's not as hard as that, it's actually made from hemp fibers. It's really neat. You got to see this thing up close. So he's got the lighter, more nimble. Now this is the biggest, longest straightaway here at Sonoma Raceway, so Kevin should have the advantage, but now starting about now, David Hampton should be able to gap him a little bit. That 4-liter mid-engine Porsche Cayman sounds really good. I actually prefer the sound of these Porsche Caymans over the Porsche Cup cars. The Porsche Cup cars, their in-car video always sounds a little bit more like a vacuum cleaner, like a... The Cayman sounds, you can hear that engine right behind the camera there. Whew, hard on the brakes. Down into gear 2 around turn 11. So this is going to be a great handling versus horsepower battle. Here they come up the hill to the Cube 3 architecture turn. David Hampton right behind in that new livery. It's the same car he had at Thunder Hill, but it was just white as Porsche Factory delivers it. And one of his friends made that livery for him, and I think it really stands out. A very sharp-looking car. Watch David's hands up top. Looks like he's very relaxed in that car. There's our leader, Dylan Lupton. One of my favorites, Buckshot Schweitzer. Love the livery of that car. And then there's the gap between the overall 1 and 2, Will Rogers, and 1 and 2 in XGT. So can Dylan Lupton, new to the series, but not new to racing, new to road racing, but not to racing. So can Dylan Lupton keep Will Rogers behind him? Really love having David Hampton in this series. Love his approach to racing. I believe he was with us at Indy last year, but just kind of You can see now we're still early on in the race. He's kind of letting the race come to him. He knows that Corvette's probably going to eat up more tires than his Porsche is. So if he can just kind of keep him in sight until maybe the last 10 or 15 laps, that's probably where David wants to pounce or try to make Kevin Michaels drive in his mirror and maybe make a mistake. You can see there going around turn 1, though, David Hampton definitely has the advantage. And then Kevin Michaels getting a little bit loose at the top there at Cube 3 turn coming through the Bennett Bridge Hall section here. So there is our scoring to the left as our cameraman holds up race monitor. And we'll be doing that throughout the race. It'll give us the top 11 at least. So there's Dylan Lupton through the Bennett Bridge Hall. Looks like about 12, 13 seconds behind is Will Rogers, and then coming through lap traffic. And then Michelle Nagai able to stay with Will Rogers pretty well. Will Rogers, one of our best drivers. There's Gio Ruggiero, and Gio's running with Nitro, who Will Rogers was a coach for last year in the TA2 series, but now has his own team in TA2, the Godwin team in the National Series. So look out for Godwin. Looking for sponsorships, and if you want to sponsor a car, look for Will Rogers, who will probably always be running in that top 10. They'll be on TV quite a bit. Oh, what's this? That's Jim Guthrie, unfortunately, after turn 11, pulling in. Now, Jim, I have to give you credit and thank you for this, because you're pulling into a place that's safe, and we can probably go back to full course green flags here. They probably threw a local yellow at turn 11 just because of your speed, but look at this. He pulls right into where the safety workers are, parks himself where he's got a view of the race, so we appreciate that, Jim. Unfortunately for Guthrie's garage, had to pull in early, but Jim Guthrie, I believe a 3-time Indy 500 qualifier and starter, so that is really cool to have him out here. Now here's Tim Rankin with the leader right behind him, and Tim Rankin here. And you can see Matthew Rivkin with Coolbox. Chevy Camaro getting a little bit loose. Again, people are coming up the Cube 3 turn a little bit too fast, putting input in, and then their car gets light. And you can see Tim Rankin letting his teammate of Dylan Lupton through. Tim Rankin pretty new to the series, but has that beautiful red XGT Ford Mustang. Tim Rankin with TCR IT Solutions Ford Mustang, just ahead of the Cool Box of Matthew Rivkin. Cool Box, if you're wondering, is a iceless driver comfort shirt that you can wear, and it's basically got a cooler in it. And what I love about it was designed by these two racers, Victor Chopla and Matthew Rivkin, and you can switch drivers and still use the same Cool Box unit. So check out Cool Box, especially as we get closer and closer into the summer in this season. So you can go to Coolbox, COOLBOXX, 2 X's, .LA, like Los Angeles. That is their website. And they'll be giving away some Coolbox shirts for our drivers that have the coolest move of the race, as we see Matthew Rivkin right there behind Patrick Utz. Dylan Lupton, our leader, coming up the Cube 3 architecture turn. Let's see how far back. And there's Will Rogers right there behind Rivkin. But Rivkin, hopefully Will Rogers is aware, is in his own battle there with Patrick Utz in that number 49 Race Quip Safety Driven Racing Oil Chevrolet Camaro. So look at that, Rivkin doing the right thing, seeing that he was coming up, giving the room. Gio Ruggiero doing really well. Pretty new to the series, just trying to get some road course experience. Uh-oh. You hear that? Something's wrong there. Tim Barber. Tim Barber seems to have done something to his transmission, going slowly. Yeah, he's stuck in gear. You can see there he's stuck in third gear, I believe, which I don't know if he'll be able to continue. I mean, if you were to pick a gear to be stuck in at Sonoma, it would probably be third gear. It's going to take him out of an advantage here. Sometimes you want to drop down to second into turn 7, and then you definitely want to go up into fourth gear a lot, but he's currently second in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series race today here, doing really well in the points. He's probably going to want to just try to salvage the race and drive it basically like an automatic in third gear. So let's see how Tim Barber does with Dig Motorsports. See if he can finish this race just having one gear. Look, you can see him trying to do things but not able to. So really going to be struggling with this car the rest of the race. There's our leader in the TA2 Series, Gio Ruggiero, following Lonnie Hostetler there in that number 24. Lonnie having some good races with us at Thunder Hill, and now back here with us in the second race weekend. Hopefully he'll be with us third race weekend, May 2nd through the 5th at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So there goes Tim Barber, then there's lap traffic, and then here's Michael LaPaglia now closing that gap on Tim Barber, and then Kyle Kelly losing some time to Michael LaPaglia, and we saw Chris Evans there between them, so Chris Evans able to change that tire and come back out, and then Tim Lynn, and then Cowboy Moore, and then Brad McAllister. So Cowboy is driving Tim Lynn's other car. One is a black 71 and one is a black 17. So thanks for making it confusing for us. There's Troy Ermish and Tim Carroll. Tim Carroll doing really well. Bob Accardo Jr. and J.C. Monet, they're having a good battle here. And then Ken Sutherland, Chopla, Rick Wright, and then there's our leader, Dylan Lupton. So Dylan coming up to a big, long train of fast lapped traffic. And then Will Rogers. Will Rogers seems to be closing that gap down to about 8 seconds there. So we'll go back there to that Bennett Bridge Hall section and kind of look at gaps as we ride on board with the race of the day, it seems like, between David Hampton, Kevin Michaels, again, handling versus horsepower, and we are currently in the handling of that pair. You can see there Brad Roberts, his data acquisition geek with AR Motorsports. He's put that steering wheel there, basically over his own steering wheel. You can see what kind of input he's giving. Uh-oh, that's Tim Rankin in that number 5. Can he fire it back up? So Tim Rankin with TCR IT Solutions Ford Mustang with the Chris Evans crew in one of those XGT Mustangs. Spun where we saw a lot of spinners yesterday in that downhill carousel section of turn 6 at Sonoma. Very treacherous. Back on board there. And I love all the graphics here. So if you go to the AR Motorsports at Laguna Seca and maybe bribe Brad Roberts, he could probably set up your camera systems to look like this. Tell him that Ben sent you. He'll love that. Now this is kind of a wide-angle lens on these cameras, so that Corvette is actually a little bit closer than it appears. Kevin Michaels doing a really good job of holding him back. And you can see Michael LaPaglia has closed that gap. That's Tim Barber ahead of him. Tim Barber currently just in third gear. Second place in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series currently here. He won race 1 and then went out, broke his Panhard bar in race 2 at Thunder Hill. Then he won yesterday's race. You can see the scoring there. So Tim Barber just ahead of Michael LaPaglia by about 2 seconds when they crossed the starting line there. But what can he do with just third gear? Because here he's going to want to go into fourth. Michael LaPaglia should be able to close this gap having fourth gear. And now sometimes, depending on how you get in, sometimes you want to drop all the way down to second there. But usually most of the TA2 drivers are continuing there through third. And back with this battle, that killer shrimp Chevrolet Corvette looking really good. Kevin Michaels in that number 98. Killer Shrimp Restaurant Chevrolet Corvette. And then David Hampton with AR Motorsports. Michael LaPaglia right behind Barber. Let's have a listen. Host Stetler there in that Camaro, giving him the line through 6. Looks like we have lost the rear view from Michael LaPaglia's camera. Probably ran out of batteries, but that was cool to see anyway. But here we go. Michael LaPaglia right behind Tim Barber, but Tim Barber still able to kind of gap and hit the power there. And in some ways, just having one gear to choose from gives you a little bit more torque in those situations because you're not going through the gear and losing that, what, a half second to go from third to fourth in power. But I think anybody, any racer would like to have at least 2, 3, and 4 here at Sonoma. Looking on the outside, Barber, Michael LaPaglia, side by side coming up. Michael LaPaglia is going to give it to him as they come up the Cube 3 architecture. Woo, and LaPaglia there getting a little bit squirrely, trying to keep the power down. Now he goes side by side with Barber into the Bennett Bridge Hole section and should be able to keep it as Barber. Now we ride on board with Barber. Let's see what he can do. Let's listen. Time coming down. You can hear him hitting his limiter sometimes where he should be going into fourth, but because there are no huge straightaways here, this is a pretty good track for that, because by the time he's on his limiter, he would be downshifting into third or second anyway to go around 6. Oh, and there's the legend himself, Chaz Howe, with one of his daughters that drove all the way out here from NOLA last weekend, so we appreciate that. Chaz Howe, basically the man that we attribute to coming up with this whole TA2 series, so thank you to Chaz Howe and your contribution to road racing, because everybody knows this may be the most competitive form of road racing in the longest running road racing series in North America, the Trans Am series. So there is Michael LaPaglia there. On board with Kyle Kelly. And you see Troy Ermish and Will Rogers right behind Troy Ermish. So let's see if Will Rogers, looks like Troy Ermish has a lot of rear end damage, I'd call that there. Will Rogers goes around. J.C. Monet, Rick Wright, Victor Chopla going at it. But this is the battle right here, these GT cars. Back on board with Hampton. Again, watch that steering wheel there, just above his name. And it's cool to see it since it's overlaid above his real steering wheel. It's pretty accurate. Woo, Kevin Michaels, the exit there of 6, got a little bit loose and laid some rubber down. And ladies and gentlemen, we haven't had a full course caution like we did in yesterday's race, and this race has really spread out. There's our leader right there, Dylan Lupton, coming around, and there's Will Rogers, maybe 4.5 to 5 seconds behind in that number 1-2. So I'm sure that the Chris Evans team is telling Dylan Lupton, I'm sure they're giving him the gaps, but Dylan Lupton with Lupton Excavation and Will Rogers in that Central Welding Supply Ford Mustang going at it as we're on board with Tim Carroll. Tim Carroll behind Buckshot Schweitzer, that 00. Going into 3rd. These are basically standard H 4-speed gearbox patterns. You can see the shifter there in chrome, just above his tachometer. Let's see if he throws it into fold. Back on board with Hampton. Sorry about that. Now Hampton, of course, with paddle shift. There's Porsche Cayman. David Hampton just showing us a smooth race here. You can see that Kevin Michaels has a little bit more to fight with that Corvette, which should be normal. You know, a front engine, rear wheel drive, tons of torque car like that Corvette. That Porsche has a little bit less horsepower, but is much more well balanced. And now Kyle Kelly has closed up the gap right behind Tim Barber in my favorite sounding car of this group. Let's take a listen. Tim Barber right there with Tim Rankin. So that's Tim Rankin there in that red number 5. Red 5 checking in. Who gets that reference? Around Patrick Utt going into 6. By the way, leave some comments on our YouTube. What do you like? What do you not like? If I get a call wrong or you want to hear me talk less, we'll be doing this throughout all the Western Championships. So tell me how you'd like to watch these shows and we'll do our best to deliver for you. Yesterday's broadcast, I heard that from a lot of comments that you liked all the engine noise. So I'm going to try to keep the engine noise coming up, and where I go quiet, I'm going to turn it up for you. So right now, this is not working out for Kyle Kelly as he's behind this XGT car. The XGT car's got more torque and more horsepower. Kyle Kelly, though, is running better times, but the longer he stays behind this, the longer it's going to take him to pass Tim Barber, who is his direct competitor up there in only 3rd gear. I'm sure Kyle Kelly's been told that Tim Barber's having problems. Then right behind them are the leaders here in Will Rogers and Dylan Lupton. So not only are these drivers in their own race, but now they've got the leaders behind them, and hopefully the leaders know that they're in their own race. So let's see, but whenever you've got somebody behind you and then lap traffic in front of you, it's really hard here to know when to make that pass, and sometimes the person behind that person has a huge advantage and somebody will set a pick for him, so look out here. So that's Kyle Kelly in the white car that we're on board with. Looks like he's giving room to the right for Will Rogers or for Dylan Lupton. So there's Dylan Lupton just to his right. Then he lets Will Rogers in also. So we appreciate that, Kyle, but that did cost you probably about 3/4 of a second in catching Tim Barber. And now Will Rogers right behind the leader, Dylan Lupton. Unfortunately, neither one of these in-car cameras worked. Dylan Lupton gave us the first half lap. Will Rogers' camera never worked. So we're just going to have to go to cars behind them to see what happens here for this overall lead. You can see Tim Barber up there, giving that one spot, giving the 2 spots maybe. Yep. So they still have Michael LaPaglia and Gio Ruggiero ahead of them. But now basically a second gap between them. On board with David Hampton. Ooh, side by side, going way too late there. Yeah, that was just, he wasn't trying to make a pass. He just maybe missed his mark a little bit. But now, let's see how Kevin's doing, because it looks like Kevin's just losing a little bit more grip than David. Yeah, see, you got squirrely there at the top. Between 8 and 9. And then had to just feather his brakes into 10. And David Hampton able to get on the brakes far a bit later as they go side by side again into 11. And David Hampton's trying to get that kind of later apex restart. Now Michael LaPaglia, who has the leaders just right behind him. Let's see if he can see them. He's given room, it looks like, but they just didn't want to take that. So let's see how close the leaders are behind Michael LaPaglia in Papini's Garage Ford Mustang. There goes the leader, Dylan Lupton, and then Will Rogers. So those are the overall leaders in XGT. And then Michael LaPaglia currently second in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 series behind Gio Ruggiero, who has just taken off. Gio is going to be racing, I believe, next Thursday. So today is Sunday. Next Thursday in the ARCA Menard series at Dover. He'll be running with a bunch of our TA2 competitors, including Connor Zilish and Brent Cruz. Back on board with Michael LaPaglia. Oh, Will Rogers makes the pass on the inside at 7. Can he hold it? Dylan Lupton right behind him, but look at that. Yeah, he's going to be able to hold it now. We're going to see if Will Rogers can really gap Dylan Lupton in that orange 1-2. But we have a new leader. That's Will Rogers back on board in the GT race. This is the race to watch right now. This has been lap after lap. Since about lap 6, these two have just gone at it. That's Kevin Michaels ahead in the Corvette. David Hampton we're in car with. Porsche Cayman, 4-liter. And I know Brad will get mad at me. So it's a Porsche Cayman GT4 CSMR. And we talk about the long, extensive career that Porsche has had in the Trans Am series. With the air-cooled Porsche 911s from the 66, 67 to 69 era. Then just the domination of the Brumos Porsches in the 70s and 80s. Tim Barber. And then Kyle Kelly. Here's Kyle Kelly, but there's our scoring. 13 laps to go. Will Rogers, Dylan Lupton, Michelle Nagai. That's our top 3. XGT, then Gio Ruggiero, Michael LaPaglia, Tim Barber, Kyle Kelly, Tim Lynn, and Brad McAllister. That's the TA2 series. see Kyle Kelly just trying to pounce on Tim Barber, but there's only about 2 or 3 places on this track where not having fourth or second gear would really come in handy. So really this is the third and a little bit of fourth gear track as the leaders pass Kevin Michaels there. And you can see Dylan Lepton still fighting for it, side by side with Will Rogers coming into 12. You can see sometimes the lap traffic, it just kind of wreaks havoc. If you don't make that pass at the right time, you can have your competitors catch up to you from the back. So there, that's 2 equally yoked cars, both Chris Evans XGT cars. And then look at that, back on board with David Hampton. You can see in his right rear view mirror, black Mustang right behind him. Not sure who that is, if that's Chris Evans or Tim Lynn. Different look there for David Hampton at the top of the hill. And Kevin Michaels was on the brake a little bit longer than I remember. And let's see who gets the best exit out of 6. Oh, that was Chris Evans there in that XGT Ford Mustang, number 92. We saw him go out with a tire problem. So welcome back. Glad he made it back out here onto the track. But now, see, he's creating this gap here. So David Hampton probably doesn't like having them in between them too much. And there's probably nowhere Chris can get past Kevin Michaels until between 10 and 11. Was a great turn 11 section from Kevin Michaels. That's going to make it really hard for David Hampton to pass when the driver you're trying to get around is running flawless laps. As we go here, now here's the gap with our leaders, and now Michael LaPaglia right behind this GT battle. Hampton's car just looks planted, just looks like he's got that car set up really well. He looks very controlled in that. And I like the red wheels of that killer shrimp Chevy Corvette of Kevin Michaels. Back on board with that Porsche, David Hampton. Somebody's coming into the pits. That's Chris Evans going into the pits again. Hopefully he's not having too many issues. So currently second in TA2 series is Michael LaPaglia, and then this is the battle, first and second for GT. And again, this is the race to watch today on Sunday's race. On board, David Hampton. Got a little squirrely there at turn 4. outside into 11. David Hampton shoots past Kevin Michaels, who can hold on to it. But now if Kevin can get a good drive off, he has the advantage with his torque to horsepower. But David Hampton showing Kevin Michaels where he'd like to take him. So I'm not sure if now Kevin will take a little bit more defensive line and make David try to take the inside. But that would be really tough. You want to keep that inside line, but now we've got Tim Barber and Kyle Kelly in their own battle right behind these two. Really scary going around the outside at 6. So on board with Kevin Michaels. You can hear him saying something on the radio. Not sure what it was, but he's talking to his spotters or crew on the radio for sure. Oh, Kevin smoking the brakes there a little bit. Maybe a little bit of a lockup there with your right front tire going into 11. He may be losing a little bit of grip as Kevin Michaels getting this late in the race. Should be about 5-6 laps to go with this GT battle. This is a 40-lap race, but the XGT cars have lapped these cars. So not sure where it's going to end for them here at Sonoma. You can see, though, his posture, he still looks very relaxed, like he's just running his race. He likes the way the car feels. He's not trying to rush any movements or passes, not trying to overdrive. He just feels really relaxed behind that car, and seems like he's got a uh-oh, what's happening here? Got a slow car ahead of him. Slow car comes over on Kevin. That's the Audi of Rick Wright. You can see the local yellow there, but throws Kevin off the track. Let's listen to Kevin's radio. You can hear Kevin getting angry, yelling to his crew, and locks it up there going into 11. So Kevin Michaels driving angry now. And that's the, he didn't have a good entry there. Probably still had a lot of dust on his tires. You can see the dust on his dashboard. He is not going to be happy about that because that Audi probably saw him in the mirrors last second and tried to get over, but it was too late and forced Kevin Michaels off into the grass. You can see grass on his grill. So let's see if Kevin Michaels can catch back up to David Hampton in that Porsche. Kevin is not going to be happy about that, but there's Kyle Kelly. So now this might be the race to watch. This is for the last step on the podium in the Q3 TA2 series, because that GT race just might have gotten away from us between David Hampton and Kevin Michaels. But this is for third place in TA2. You've got Kyle Kelly that still has all 4 of his gears. The car right in front of him is Tim Barber with, I believe, only 3rd gear. Late in the race, ladies and gentlemen, this is where drivers want to make passes. Their cars have gotten lighter, they've burned off a lot of fuel, but they've also burned some tire. So this is where things start to get a little bit dicey, and then when you know it's kind of getting late in the race, you might make moves that you wouldn't quite make, hopefully, early on in the race. Like I said in yesterday's race, that track map is showing Portland and not Sonoma. And instead of Bob Kelly, we do have Kyle Kelly behind the wheel. So somehow Tim Barber still able to make it around this track with just third gear. So there goes Will Rogers. There's Patrick Hutt. And then back to this fight. Kyle Kelly and Tim Barber coming downhill to turn 11. I can't believe what Tim Barber is able to do here with just third gear. And like I said in yesterday's race, Dig Motorsports, they have another car to rent. So if you want to come and race in the Cube 3 TA2 series, give Dig Motorsports a call, DIG. This has got to be so frustrating for Kyle Kelly, just looking for something to get around, to get that top step. Kyle was on the podium with us in yesterday's race, got the third step of the podium. He'd like to make it 2 third steps of the podium, but first he's got to get around that car right ahead of him of Tim Barber to make that happen. Tim Barber just able to put that 33 just in a place where Kyle just cannot get around. Kyle does have the faster car, as you can see, but just nowhere to pass it. And that's where it gets frustrating, especially getting this late in the race. Goes around Mission Foods turn 10. Let's see if he can make anything stick at 11. Kyle Kelly doing everything that he can. Watch the green and the red lines there. So he's on the brakes and on the throttle, just trying to do anything he can. I'm very impressed with Tim Barber and how he's able to do this just in third gear. There's David Hampton going by there, and then Brad McAllister. Michelle Nagai right up on Brad's right rear. Don't think there was any contact there, but about as close as you can get. Michelle Nagai currently in third in XGT and third overall, I believe. There is our leader, Gio Ruggiero, in the Q3 Architecture TA2 Series, right behind Patrick Hutt. Gio Ruggiero just running a flawless race, super fast out here. One of the Toyota development drivers, and that's second place. Michael LaPaglia in that new Ford Mustang with that kind of RTR front end, new headlights. And look at this, this is the fight. That's Kyle Kelly side by side with Tim Barber going into the Cube 3 turn. And Tim Barber has to give it to him. So Kyle Kelly able to make that pass finally. on Tim Barber. Now let's see if he can try to catch up to Michael LaPaglia, who seems to be about 7-8 seconds ahead of him. But Tim Barber, I have to give him credit, fighting for as long as he did with just third gear here at Sonoma. That is tough to do. And still fighting. There's our leader, Will Rogers. Let's see if we can see the gap. There's second place overall, Dylan Lupton. Cowboy giving him room, so we appreciate that. Back on board with Tim Barber. On board with Kevin Michaels. Look at that. You can see Michelle Nagai giving him the arrow to pass around the left side. Michelle Nagai looks like having some rear wheel or transmission issues, so we're on board. Let's see. Oh yeah, you can see smoke in the cabin. She's having mechanicals. Oh, that is unfortunate. This late in the race, she was going to have 2 podium races, a win and possibly third place here at Sonoma, but it looks like she's going to have to pull in here after Mission Foods turn 10. Let's see if she goes to the left or if she tries to finish the race, but she's got, looks like gearbox issues. Yeah, so there she goes. She lets Dylan around, and she's coming into pit lane. Unfortunate for Michelle Nagai as the white flag is out for Will Rogers. So there's Will Rogers, and we saw Dylan Lupton going into 11, so 1 lap left for Will Rogers. Let's see what happens here. Because there goes Dylan Lupton. That's second place. You see that front splitter kind of bouncing up and down. And now Tim Barber looks like he's just fallen back just slightly from Kyle Kelly. But it'll do him really well in the points to finish 4th. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, a 4th place finish with the car that he's had this race might feel like a total win, because a lot of drivers would have just come in after they knew they couldn't go through their gear. So hats off to Tim Barber if he can finish this race. So 1 more lap to go for Tim Barber. And his gearbox, hold on, with just that third gear. And here's the checkered flag for Will Rogers, right behind Ken Sutherland. So a checkered flag. Will Rogers wins the race. Then in second place is going to be Dylan Lupton. And that's the end of Kevin Michaels' race in that Corvette. So he was able to finish. And then there's Gio Ruggiero right there winning in the TA2, the Cube 3 Architecture TA2. Let's go down to Winner's Circle, the Jimweed Winner's Circle, to talk to Will.
Meticulously, methodically trying to catch that gray car. Finally got him, and then just kind of took off. That's got to feel really good.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Just really got to thank Chris Evans Racing. This XGT class is growing, and I'm really happy to be part of it. I'm happy to promote how great these XGT cars are, specifically Chris Evans race cars are. We dominate. I mean, hands down. We can run against TAs on the national side. We dominate on the West. It's just a matter of time before more people get in these cars because they're such a blast. But hats off to the entire crew. Hats off to Dylan Lupton for jumping in this weekend, getting some experience for some upcoming races. So I'm glad we could help him with that. He gave me a run for my money on my pace, but I knew it was only a matter of time. I just had to stay patient, and here we are, back in victory lane.
Gio Ruggiero What a run, man. I mean, totally different than what happened yesterday, but unbelievable out there. You just took off and really had no competition.
Yeah, you know, we worked so hard all weekend. This is my first time here. Awesome to have all these Nitro Motorsports guys come out here and get the win. Unfortunate what happened yesterday. You know, we had a problem with the car and had to go to the rear and laps down. We rebounded strong today, so I'm just proud of all the guys and everybody who supports me and helps me get this done. I want to thank everybody at Toyota Racing and my mom and dad.
LaPaglia, nice job. This has got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, no, it feels great. After having that mechanical failure yesterday and DNFing, feels good just to get 40 laps under green. Car ran great, team did an awesome job, and got a good finish, so no complaints.
Nice. Now, how about your crew here? Did they have fun? Oh, yeah. Did you guys have fun? Yeah?
You have fun? You have fun?
Too much fun, maybe. How about you guys?
Oh my God, outstanding, outstanding.
Nothing better than racing.
Nervous wreck.